me try that again. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
If I don't have this, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. I tend to be very loud, or at least so I'm told every so often. So just to make sure you're in the right spot, my name is R.J. I'm Deputy Superintendent over at Glenbrook High School District, and we are talking about our conversion process. What that means is, 6 years ago, we made the switch from SMS to Qmlativ. Does anyone want to get up and leave at this point? If not, you're stuck with me for about an hour. We good? It's not food coma time yet, so I'm going to go with yes. All right. So, Glenbrook was actually the first school district in Illinois to convert from SMS to Qmlativ. And we did so for the same reasons that Tim Casey spoke of yesterday during lunch. And that was, when you're one of the first to go, for lack of better terms, you get a little love because there's going to be some bumps in the road that you're going to live through. So when we converted over, there were actually some modules that we had used in the past that we needed to step away from because they weren't yet made. There were some processes that we became very familiar with in SMS that were not converted or built within Q yet. In fact, I remember Vicki, my director of business, is here. Vicki's number one thing on the accounting side that she was greatly missing was a way of referring to account numbers by account categories. And those categories didn't exist yet. On the flip side, our staff in our district have become so familiar and excited about quick keys that when we learned that quick keys could be more than 8 characters, it was like, oh my gosh, this is utopia. We can't get any better than that. But even though at different times we had to step back, the best part of it is that as parts of the product were being developed, parts of the product that had not yet been fully vetted, we were able to provide input. And as each of you begin your journey to learn about Qmlativ, please know that Skyward is consistently looking for your feedback as it modernizes and enhances existing parts of the product, and as it starts to build new products and connections to third-party solutions. The way that you get your voice heard is the folks that are here right now. Many of the folks presenting workshops, many of the folks sitting at the help desk, which is right across from the free mag light and umbrella depot, as I like to call it. Those are the folks that you want to have a conversation about, and you want to share challenges or areas for growth that you've identified. They actually do write down your name. And then as the product is being looked at in different areas, they maintain that list and they will follow up with you. And you'll actually have the opportunity to provide feedback on what the database and what the experience will look like for users. That's not a joke, that's not a sales pitch, that is fact. But it does require you to raise your hand and say, hey, I love my SMS, or if you're on Qmlativ, I love my Qmlativ experience, but it could be so much better if, fill in the blank, you just need to raise your hand and share that feedback. So, with that said, a little background of our school district. We have about 5,200 students, and we've kind of consistently stayed at that level. We're slated to go a little down, and then the next day we're slated to go a little up. So, kind of average. We do have about 830 full-time staff members. So those are our support staff professionals, our administrators, and most importantly, our teachers. And we're located just about 15 minutes from O'Hare in the suburbs of Glenview and Northbrook. Glenbrook started with SMS 2.0 in 2013. And SMS was implemented by a user that had utilized even the oldest version of Skyward back to the DOS days. So a pretty strong power user. But when Skyward was implemented, we were replacing an old system that had its ways, and there were a lot of challenges with them. But change is hard whenever you do it in a school district. And so we had to kind of evolve with what Skyward had, and then, we came up with this crazy idea around 2018 that we'd make another change. Sometimes people just need to stay on their toes. And so we went down that path. I already mentioned that we were the first cumulative conversion. And one thing you should know is when we converted, one of the biggest topics out there was reporting. SMS had a very robust data mining tool. A data mining tool on the general accounting side, significant data mining tools within the payroll side, and that allowed us to easily report out on information for our Board of Educations, for our local budget managers, for all of our different stakeholder groups that are there. And when we converted, let me tell you, there weren't a lot of reports made. The cool part of it is, all of the reports that we needed to create in order to have a $180 million budget audited, in order to receive all of the financial recognitions from ASBO International and the Government Finance Officers Association. Everything needed to survive through multiple IRS audits, multiple TRS and IMRF audits. All of those reports are now available. And here's one of the most exciting parts about the cumulative process. Not only are those available as stock reports for Skyward, but there's a bunch of reports that we as a school district created for our own uses. And if you see something that we'll show you later on today that you want, it's as simple as emailing you a copy of the report, you uploading it, and now you have the same report that we have. Little asterisk, as long as you're not using certain custom fields. So, when we went down this process, we talk a lot in education about having a growth mindset. And what a growth mindset ultimately means is when you're embarking upon the potential of doing something different or evolving what you're doing, you do so with the mindset that to do so is going to make it better, not only for the individuals doing the work, but individuals tomorrow and in years to come. Making sure it's not only beneficial for the business office, who I like to call our super users, but also beneficial for our students, for our parents, and for our regular staff members. And when we went down this route, this concept of making a change, which by the way we made mid-year, which is also something you typically don't do in a lot of things, we did so knowing that even if we have a few stumbling blocks along the way, a few bumps in the roads, our efforts will pay off dividends for years to come. And we're going to demonstrate exactly what that looks like now. So we're 6 years into cumulative. Let's translate that again. That's 6 fiscal year audits, 6 COE award applications, 6 ever popular collective bargaining agreements, right? A whole lot of different things have happened. And cumulative has powered us to be successful. Here's how. First and foremost, we don't like to talk a lot about this, but it's important to reflect on the days of the pandemic. I remember in February, when we sent all of our staff home, we literally sent them home with their monitors, with their scanners, with their laptops and everything, thinking that they were only going to be gone for 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at most. Our entire business office staff, except an administrator or two, worked from home all the way through July of that year. And at no point in time did our operations skip a beat. Why? When we made the transition to cumulative, we finally put our foot down and we said we are a paperless business office. So what does that mean? It means that every invoice that's received, we scan it and we upload it to Skyward. It means, this was a huge enhancement in cumulative, payroll in SMS does not have the ability to store files. Qmlativ provides the ability to attach files to your payroll run. At the end of the day, payroll is going to have working files for years to come. Even if you are a fully paperless timesheet environment, I assure you, periodically, you're going to have requests for pay that are going to be an email, they're going to be a signed timesheet or something like that. All of that supporting document information, all of the reconciliations that you do, you're going to have them, and now all of ours are attached to our payroll run. So as our payroll specialists do their work, wherever they are in the process, they upload those materials, and not only a few days after the payroll is completed can we go back and review them in a nice organized manner, but when our auditors come in, they don't ask for files. They have full access to Skyward, they click the paper clip, and they figure it out, which makes our life beautiful. But when we went to Qmlativ, we made that decision. The software didn't make us do that. We made the choice that if we're going to make a change, we're going to make a change again, not just because the software tells us we have to, and sometimes it does, but because we want to improve our own environment. So that was a big change, paperless business. Just showing you out here, this is an example of how we organize our payroll files. This is an example showing all of the things, the working files you still have. Payroll notifications, directives, SRAs, Red Rover is what we use for our substitutes replacement, and we do a third-party import. So all of those files are there. Nicely organized, dated, naming convention, all good things. Here's another thing. Back in SMS, we had started the transition of having our administrative assistants enter in their invoices. So instead of sending a whole bunch of stuff through interoffice mail and it getting lost and not processed in a timely fashion, we empowered them to utilize the check request function in SMS. The challenge, though, that we ran into was the check request function and a few other functions in SMS didn't match the same screens that our business office staff ultimately use. And there was also a bunch of conversion process. In Qmlativ, the same screens that someone accesses to create a PO, create an invoice, deal with the credit card transactions, are the exact same screens that happen to be used in our business office. And so what was really helpful about this to improve our user experience is when we have a variety of turnovers in support staff positions, we didn't need another team of trainers in order to respond to questions that came up. They were able to call directly to the accounts payable team or the respective team that supports a module and say, oh, I do this every day. Open the screen up, are you clicking on this, this, and this? So because the database was consistent, we were able to improve our user experience for support as they had questions come up. Another thing, we wanted to make sure, as we were implementing a piece of software, that we improved the level of internal controls. And Qmlativ gave us a little more flexibility to do that. And so think of all of the different expenses that you pay in a school district. Invoices, credit cards. If you have all of that information sent over to your central office, your accounts payable team, there's a knowledge gap that we need to acknowledge exists. And that is, the accounts payable person has no idea why we bought X, Y, and Z widgets. They don't know what they were used for. They don't know if it was part of an instructional program or if it was a buildings and grounds expense per se. They just get an invoice for widgets that says pay. What we did is we really leveraged different approval groups, and we made things very finite so that whoever ultimately makes a purchase, they are the one that enters it first into Skyward because they have the direct knowledge of what it is that they purchased and what account number in theory, I'm going to get to that, in theory it should be attached to. So again, we empowered them and also placed the responsibility upon them to be the first ones to enter a transaction. But after we went from there, after they got the invoice in there, it has to go through an approval process. And this may sound cruel and unusual. It's not intended to be. It's just good practice. We had a problem sometimes when Skyward approvals went through to some of our leaders. Does anyone know what can happen when you have a bunch of transactions that need your approval and you don't have a lot of time? What you do? Mass approve! Well, Qmlativ allows us to take away the mass approve button. So we did. Why? Not to be cruel and unusual, but because the reality is those approvers have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to the school district and to our taxpayers to make sure that when they click approve, that they've actually read about what was purchased, that they actually made sure that the account number was accurate. All of these important things. Take away the mass approve button, and at least I know they had to click on every single one and then click another approve button. But don't worry, I'm a realist. I know you can do that while watching The Golden Bachelor. So we added another level of approver in. Again, learning this process. We realized that when it gets to our business office, we still find some errors, right? So that accounts payable person or maybe an internal auditor person. And we added them into the process after kind of learning and dealing with things. And I'll tell you why. We added them because one of the worst things to do once something gets to you in an approval process, if you're not approver at the end, you can't fix everything that you need to fix if it's wrong. And so you end up hitting deny. And when you hit deny, that means that another person gets an email. And that means another person has to log into Skyward. And then another person has to open up it again. And then another person has to send it through all again. As we made this transition, we're like, we gotta start working smarter. It's okay for our staff to pick up the phone in those first few situations where they find issues, find out what it is, and just make the correction on their behalf to eliminate the back and forth. Now, for frequent flyers, if any of you have those, the deny button's beautiful, and it provides a wonderful track record. But for the one-offs, being able to make that change goes a long way. And so when we built our new groups, because you will have to build this does not convert over from SMS, we make sure to put our final approver in the business office as an approver so that they had flexibility to change. Oh, one of my favorites. Nicole over here, our fiscal services manager, she's like BFFs with the reporting and import team. She's taken over my role in that world, which I greatly appreciate. Thank you, and God bless you. In SMS, you can't import into every area of the database. You have restrictions. You can import a lot, but then there's a whole lot that you can't. In Qmlativ, you can mass import into every system and every table of the database. Anything. Just imagine what you might import. I have a slide here. I'm just going to jump to it because I don't remember where it's in the deck. Back in the pandemic, our district made a decision that we were going to refund student fees. So I have 5,200 students. That meant I was going to refund 5,200 families. Well, let's reduce that down to like 4,200, right? Because multiple kids. In order to refund families, just for the record, they have to be vendors. Unless you have like a cool partnership with like Discover and you just send a Discover card or something like that, that's probably not a good thing. Could you imagine what it's like to manually key in 4,200 vendors? Candidly, that would kind of suck. Import Designer allows us, and we still do this today, we use another student information system called PowerSchool. Long story. And what we do is once a week, we dump all of our student data and we import it in so that we always have all of our students as vendors in Skyward, and we do that by using Import Designer because we can import directly into the database. A little trick that we did, we cleaned up our vendor numbers, and the vendor number for all of our students is their student ID number, so that we're able to really easy pull them up, issue a refund, or research to find out if we refunded them before when they claim they never got a refund. It's always fun things. Oh, there's my fine. You see my vendor number with my student ID number. Here's another thing we did. We have a partnership with eFunds for Schools. They're actually one of the vendors here at the conference. eFunds for School is a really great tool in that it allows parents to pay their fees through an online portal. But we also have bookstores in both of our high schools where students can go and bring cash or paper check and all of their fees get processed there. We worked with eFunds to create the exact import that you need in order to import all of those cash receipts. And we worked with eFunds to make sure that when I import a cash receipt, on the record, I know the student ID number, I know the exact description of the fee that was paid, I know the tender that it was paid in, I correspond to posting date so that it matches. This import that we created, because if you do online processing with a variety of different tenders, you know that you have cash, right? And you're going to physically take cash. You can't scan cash yet, not yet. But you got cash that you're going to send to your local bank. Then you have transactions that are paid for or are processed by parents using ACH. You got those. And then you have credit card transactions. And all three of these different transactions, even though they were all done yesterday, they're going to post on 3 different dates, meaning they're going to come into your cash account on 3 different dates. The export we made for eFunds gives us the 3 separate dated files so that we can correspond everything and not try to cluster it together. Why? Because I recognize I have a level of OCD and I need to make sure that each cash receipt batch matches a direct deposit within the bank reconciliation. Qmlativ gives us huge tools to create a variety of different imports in cash receipts, for journal entries, any element of the system. You have imports so you can leverage third parties or for your own internal processes. I'm going to show you another thing we did. Again, we wanted to act a little smarter here. We wanted to change our world. You might wonder why I'm randomly showing you a conference room with a gigantic pole in the middle that was a stupid architectural design. The reality is, this is a pretty large room that used to be stocked with employee files. When we went to Qmlativ, we finally got access to security on what they call an attachment type. So we converted all of our HR files digitally. For our active employees, we were much more granular in how we kind of organized what we scanned and then ultimately imported into Skyward. For our employees that have been gone for 30 years, we did a batch import, which, just for the record, a 30-year-old file has a lot of paper clips and staples and post-it notes, and that's like a harder process than you might think it starts at. But we freed up an entire conference, or an entire storage room, and made it a conference room, which was a huge benefit to our HR team that had no place to meet with new hires. They always would kind of pull them off the side, kind of standing in front of a sink. Or have them in a cube area where you can't have any privacy when talking about health insurance elections or marital status or things of that nature. So Qmlativ, again, the software didn't force us to do this, but because the software allowed me to say who can see an employee evaluation that's been scanned in compared to who can see an employee's W-4 that was imported, compared to someone that can see health insurance election forms. We have all of that, and that's all controllable through security. Here's another thing we did. Open enrollment. It's that gorgeous time of year for us in about 2 weeks. I can see the enthusiasm on my team's face over here. Open enrollment is an important time. It's an important time for a bunch of different populations. First and foremost, it's an important time for our employees that are going to be transitioned to retirees in the coming year. Our plan year starts on January 1st. They're going to be retired in June. And they got to make sure whatever health insurance that they elect is where the level it is that they're going to want, because we give our employees access to a level of health insurance when they leave, but it's based on what they've selected in their final year. We have other employees that are starting the planning process or sped ahead on the planning process and are going to be expanding their families. And they're going to welcome a new family member, and they need to understand what does family coverage look like differently than single coverage. Then we have other staff members that their significant other might have health insurance waived or at a lower cost than we have, so they need to understand what our health insurance plans are. Well, let me tell you, being in the business now for a decent number of years, the least informative, helpful times for our employees is when we put everyone in the room for an open enrollment meeting and we ask who has questions. Because just for the record, people don't want to ask questions in front of everyone, especially about their health care. In Skyward, in Qmlativ, forgive me, we now have these beautiful custom forms. Think of a custom form now as a set of steps, a workflow, a process that individuals go through. And within those processes, Qmlativ allows us to embed videos. Within those processes, Qmlativ allows me to link to Aetna's website, to my list of available providers, to my list of prescription drug changes. All of that information now, nicely organized, just as if a student was progressing through a lesson that's put into their Google Classroom or a service like Canva or Schoology. Skyward provides that to us. And instead of using a third-party service, right, where they select their benefit elections, they do so directly in Skyward, and after the form is approved, deductions and benefits are automatically imported by user action into Benefit Manager and adjust what's going to happen for the first pay on January 15th. We substantially transitioned how we actually log or launch open enrollment, because online forms allows us to communicate information in a personal, unique way more than we ever could in a 30-minute presentation in a staff meeting. And friends, if you didn't go to the workshop that was yesterday, I think there's another one being shared today. There are huge new opportunities forthcoming in benefit management, including the ability to manage a passive open enrollment, where you don't require your employees to select coverage year to year. Do you know why something like passive enrollment is happening? Because user feedback and because their development team listens. And they hear the same thing from multiple districts, and it gets prioritized. So, huge benefits with online forms, huge benefits to improve and streamline our payroll process, huge benefits to not use a third-party service, but keep people in Skyward. Here's another thing. Managing substitute pools is a labor of love. No one? We use a tool, again, another partner that's here called Red Rover. Prior to Red Rover, we used a tool from Frontline that's now called Absence Management, previously called ASOP. And we've been using those tools for about 9 years now. And there's some challenges that exist when you use third-party tools. One challenge is, in order to have a third-party tool that integrates, you need to maintain user accounts. So a teacher, in order to submit an absence, has to live in Skyward and they have to live in Red Rover. We worked with Red Rover to create a variety of synchronization tools. We'll simplify it to say exports and imports on different times. So that our employees, as they're hired, automatically become users in Red Rover. So that when someone changes their first name or last name, or someone changes their phone number, or their email address change, we don't have to maintain 2 separate systems. We have it happen directly here. And we're able to partly do that because in Qmlativ, in the report manager interface for scheduled reports, I now have the ability, without making 24 different reports, I have the ability to schedule reports to run multiple times a day to multiple destinations, all through secure file transfer. So I don't have to drop those files on my local server and then use another tool to ship them up. It's literally Skyward web-based UI to Red Rover web-based UI in this example. So a lot of ways to get information out there. But again, this tool existed before in SMS, but it's evolved. The ability to take information from Red Rover, from Red Rover to get it to Skyward, used to only be through exports and imports. Well, I'm pleased to share that as long as it works with your organization's setups, Qmlativ now has what we call an API, an application program interface. A nerdy way of saying 2 databases can talk to each other without you having to do anything. And we have that now, not only for Red Rover, but for a ton of products, some of which certainly please visit the sponsors for the conference that are here. But we didn't have that. The only way we could dump data out of Skyward in a very complex way is leveraging SkyBuild in SMS, or leveraging, if you are a Crystal person, you could do a Crystal connector and dump from there, but it was file dumps. Down, and then it had to go up somewhere, or down and then upload it to Skyward. Here we have those APIs that continue to be developed, and they really streamline and simplify process, but most importantly, an API has much better stability. So things don't go down and you're like, why don't people have updated accounts? It lets you know and it retries as opposed to just becoming bored. So what exactly does our future have to hold? Well, first and foremost, we were, again, a district that was struggling. I did a presentation on this yesterday. We really struggle with third-party tools that one day tell you you're going to get a 17% increase. Maybe you don't care about that. That kind of like, it pisses me off, not gonna lie. Especially when a 17% increase comes and the product is less stable and hasn't evolved in like, I don't know, 8 years. So when you do such odd things, such as raising your price, and then, oh, by the way, you know what also upsets me? When someone raises the price for me 17%, but my friend down the street who called me and was upset when they got a 10% increase, that really upsets me too. That's just not cool. If you're gonna raise prices, be consistent. Well, we started talking to Skyward, and one of the modules that did not exist when we converted, that we literally were ready to roll out before Qmlativ was announced, was called Fast Track. That's the application processing, the onboarding tool. Well, Skyward developed applicant tracking, and we were one of the first districts to adopt. Let me tell you something. Here's how applicant tracking really saves time in a very straightforward manner. People apply. We all good with that? People apply for a job. And just for the record, it's best practice to have one application process, not like a super special one for internal folks and a super different one for external folks, right? But one process. And then ultimately, someone gets selected, or a group of individuals get selected to hire. When you make the selection to hire and you make that phone call and you invite them in, just pause for a moment and think of what happens when they come in to meet with your HR team. First and foremost, you're going to need a bunch of documents, right? Let's say you have a teacher that's on a salary schedule. You need for them to prove that they have a bachelor degree. You need them to prove if they have a master's degree. You need them to prove if they have additional credit hours. And so you're taking all of that information. Oh, and don't worry, many times people bring originals that they don't want to give away. Again, you don't require them, so you're going to make copies of them for those folks. And then you're going to put them aside. And then you're going to go through all this other information that you're going to need for them. They're going to need to fill out their W-4 form. They're going to need to fill out their I-9 form. They're going to need to provide all of these documents. You're going to put them to the side. And then you're going to need to get them in Skyward, right? So you're going to manually start typing in their name. And then you're going to spell it wrong, and you're going to have to correct it. And you're going to go back and forth here. So there's a lot of data entry. There's a lot of document collection. Some stuff happens immediately, some stuff to the side. Then, ultimately, you're going to need to take a picture for them to have an ID. But the problem is, Skyward doesn't synchronize with the ID system except once a day. And so now you're going to have to hold on to the picture. You're going to have to chill with it for a little bit. And hopefully you remember to upload it so that ultimately you can print out their ID, because your district has gone to electronic locks. And if you don't have an ID, you can't get into the building. And then you're going to have all of this fun stuff. Really add up all of those minutes together. And then ask yourself, my gosh, they probably can type their name better than I can. We hope. Why am I typing their name? Why am I typing their street address? Why am I not trying to empower my applicants to upload your transcripts when you apply, as opposed to me having to make your copies, scan your copies, upload your copies, shred your copies, right? You see, there's a lot of stuff here. Applicant tracking streamlines all of this. But I'm going to go a step further. So I'm a chief school business official. That means additional duties are assigned and whatever headaches come up. And over my 9 years in position, the number of times I have needed to deal with state or federal level complaints continues to increase. An individual does not get hired and believes that they were not given a fair chance. If you quantify how much time it takes me to figure out who were all of the candidates that applied, because remember, we have a super secret process that's different for internal folks, and they don't have to use the application system, so I don't have a record of it, I only have anecdotal notes. And then for me to understand who progressed through from round 1 to round 2. And then why were they ultimately not selected? What were the interview notes? What were the rulings from the committee? Trying to answer that, you are literally talking about, for each case, 40 to 80 administrative hours, very expensive hours. And that's on top of all of the support staff in the HR department of the business office that's trying to piece together who is in position and how the world works. Applicant Track takes that away because applicant tracking has processes. And it's documented for life in your official human resources system. And so I can answer those questions. I can point it out. And make no mistake, when I can have computer-based reporting, it allows me to get through a complaint or a dispute much easier. So we've implemented this, and we're planning to go fully live with all of our staff during the hiring season that for us pretty much starts in December, January, as we're looking to hire our new teachers. Process management. This is the new task manager. I'm not gonna lie, don't tell anyone out there, I hated task manager. Oh, I knew what it tried to do, it just didn't do it the way I was okay with. Process manager, on the other hand, that can be your friend. So, what is this all about? Task manager had some challenges. First and foremost, task manager could not deal with teams of people. The only way you could deal with a task that was assigned to like 5 people was to create a fake security user called tech team, and everyone logged in and then kind of tracked it accordingly. Process manager allows you to assign tasks to groups of individuals, knowing that one tech might pull it off or another tech to deploy a laptop or what have you. Tremendous flexibility, and let me tell you another thing, process management can be kicked off after you convert an applicant to an employee, so that now your payroll team, your benefit team, your tech team, and everyone can be informed, as opposed to sending separate emails or as opposed to using a separate ticketing system. Process manager gives us that. So, there have been a bunch of different sessions about Qmlativ to SMS conversion. My goal today was to provide you a little bit of our journey and my explanation, telling you about what are some things that we use this conversion journey to support us doing. And a big theme of my presentation is, it's not the software that makes me do things, but when you're in an administration and you have enough gray hair as I continue to grow through the days, you learn that you don't skip an opportunity, you maximize that opportunity. And so we use the software conversion, again, to improve our internal processes, to become more stable and more thorough with our internal controls, and ultimately, to improve efficiency. Improving efficiency ultimately leads to you maximizing individuals' time. I've yet to meet a business office staff member or an HR staff member who doesn't have more than enough tasks to fill their time. So this is not about reducing staff, this is about freeing up time to allow them to have a reasonable level of work that they're dealing with each and every day. But I will also tell you, when you make change and when you do this, you face resistance. So what resistance did we face? First and foremost, we had planned to convert a few different times. We had a few bumps in the road. But we ultimately made the decision to convert basically over spring break. And we had payrolls, right? So we had to time our payroll perfect and know that we weren't going to be able to run any special checks. We weren't going to be able to fix anything. And so we had to make sure that all of our paperwork that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, and then we're running special check runs, and Vicki gets mad at me every time I say do, we had to make sure we weren't doing any of those headaches, because we were going to be shut down for a period of time. That wasn't as much of a pushback as much as it was like an awakening for folks who sometimes lose those things in the mail, to let them know, hey, there's no flexibility here. You're going to get it to us, or we're not going to be able to do anything for 2 weeks. Because at the time, that's how long it took to really get everything up and running. Number 2, as odd as this sounds, no one ever goes to Skyward and prints a copy of their direct deposit advice until you tell them you can't do it. And then everyone in the world needs to get a copy of their direct deposit advice. And so we had a little pushback of people saying, well, we can't log in, we don't know what we're doing. Well, a quick review of their Skyward log shows that they've never done it before and they don't know what they're clicking on. Not pushback, but a little bit of fun. Number 3. When we help districts go through this process, I can't tell you how much I hear of technology departments being a challenge. It's a very interesting world. Now in our district, I'm in charge of technology, so it really wasn't much of a discussion. But many districts experience a level of pushback in terms of they want to go live in a sandbox and they want to have 3 months or 4 months to figure it out and go through there. And once they implement, well, we don't really want to make any changes. We want to let things flesh out and people have to live through configurations that don't work and things of that nature. Bottom line, if technology oversees your district's security permissions, if another department oversees your PO or your credit card or your invoice groups, right, those configurations, everyone needs to be on the same page and know that during conversion week, it's all hands on deck. And all hands on deck means if we identify an issue and it needs to be addressed, it's going to be addressed, not delayed. And my gosh, I've heard people get told during a conversion that they should put in a help desk ticket. I think I might have some choice words to the person who told me that. We all should be together. We need to work together. And so if technology manages certain things, that needs to be addressed. Another thing is, we only converted on the business side because we have a different student information system. When you think of the ERP, as Skyward calls it, or the business and HR side, you have power users. You have payroll, accounts payable, your receivable, your cash receipt, your accountant folks, and then you have your HR folks, right? Those are really the big groups of folks you have. They are your power users. They need to know before the rest of the staff knows that this change is coming. My wife is Italian and she says you can solve the world's problems oftentimes by providing food and sharing news. You may agree or you disagree with that. But we kind of made it a little bit of a production, a little bit of a party. We got our power users together. We provided food multiple times through this process as they were learning the system. We gave them access to a sandbox. Here's what we didn't do. We didn't just give them access to the PDC, the Professional Development Center, and say, go watch a bunch of videos. That's a good way to make people really irritated with you. Plus, if they're like mandated trainings, let's just call it what it is, people don't like watching videos. So we gave them live access to a sandbox, but then we came together and we walked through how to create an invoice, how to add an employee, how to run a payroll. Step by step, module by module, not training, I'm going to training, no. You are going to come and learn how we make invoices, how we create POs, how we print a check. Basic things, so important. And by going on that granular level, we receive buy-in and support from our super users, our power users. But I'll tell you another thing. Nicole, Vicki, and I all knew the areas for growth. Use that growth mindset. We knew that there were areas that were not ready for prime time. We didn't put them on a billboard and tell everyone these are all of the problems. And as I talk to districts who have gone through conversions, you would be amazed at how many districts, the first meeting that they talk about converting, they put the billboard up and they say all the problems that they're going to experience. Instead of that, we talked about all of the good things that we were going to benefit from that were specific to our organization. And then we talked about, oh yeah, thank you all of our friends who helped develop the fast track module. I regret to inform you the last 3 months of planning, it's going to be put on hold for just a little bit because that module doesn't exist yet. But here's the cool thing. Even when you put things on pause for a little bit, the conversations that took place to build those modules helped us years later when we implemented applicant tracking. Because you'd be amazed. Put a piece of paper in front of an HR person and say, how do we hire someone in the district? The early part of that is really hard because of how many things are done locally in a building or in a department. And when you're building a system, you need to know the whole process from A to Z. So we worked with our super users. We first made sure they knew about it. We made sure they saw all the exciting things, and we absolutely acknowledged areas for growth, but we did not start with that. And then we went step by step through the different processes. Then, conversion time is forthcoming. Now we're going to tell the rest of our staff. But again, we didn't announce, hey, Qmlativ is here, more information to come. No. We said, hey, Qmlativ is here. It means that when you go to put in your time off, it's going to be a little different. It means when you go to print your pay stub, it's going to look a little different. We said exactly what was relevant to the rest of our employee access users. Not a system is coming, not there's more changing education that we all need to deal with. Specifically, yes, we're changing our platform. Skyward is still a Skyward. It's going to work great. And here specifically is what you need to know about it. Tailored messages decrease frustration. Tailored messages eliminate panic as much as you can. And then the conversion process starts. Here's an important thing to know about the conversion process. It's not like you never can log into SMS again. If you're on IS Corp, as you convert to Qmlativ, your SMS instance stays alive for several years. So during the conversion process, I could totally log into SMS. What you can't do is like print a check or something, because if you do so, it won't be in your new database because they dumped everything and they're importing it. But you can still get in. Our SMS instance is still up, and if we have different audits, sometimes we need to randomly go look at things because it was just easier to do that for a specific need. But during that conversion process, which takes a few days, we share information with our power users. Our power users got about 5 to 6 days to continue developing their skills in anticipation of the conversion by using the PDC, by using a sandbox that Skyward and IS Corp will provide. And so when it was time to go live, they were ready to go. Now, if anyone ever watched Forrest Gump, there's a moment in time where a bumper sticker is created. It has more than the word "it happens" in it. I'll let you fill in the blanks there. When you convert, I've been through tons of conversions and software upgrades. Anyone who tries to say everything is going to be absolute sunshine and rainbows is living in a different world. Perhaps the Trolls movie. There are going to be problems. Things are going to break. Things are not going to work. And what we did for our users, the 3 people that were running the process, we were available for our users 24/7. We weren't having them submit the tickets, we were doing it on their behalf. They were trying to figure out the process, we were dealing with the problems. We were shoulder to shoulder with them. And the number one thing that I have heard from districts that convert, you have no understanding how much it means to your support staff who are living through this when their assistant superintendent or when their director is right there in the trenches with them, living through the problems and navigating through it. The physical presence, the willingness to submit tickets goes a long way. So those are some of the things that we did to navigate the change. And overall, I can say we've been very happy and things have been very stable. We continue to throw curveballs by being beta testers for different products. We continue to actually go down to Skyward at least once a year where we're giving feedback directly to developers and things. And all of these options are available to districts that are interested in that. We've learned if we want to get something done, we got to have a loud voice. And so, I literally am loud, so I go practice being loud. Sometimes it works. So, we have a few minutes here to our left. Let's do a crazy thing. let's not have an awkward moment here. Let me ask you guys what questions you really have, because I'll be brutally honest with you about what the conversion looks like. There's a question. Yeah, yes.
Do you notice that the customer service is any different with the Q than with your SMS if you're a faster response time?
I'm going to give you a two-part answer.
Okay.
First and foremost, this is no insult to the SMS team. I got to start by saying that. In order to support Qmlativ, Skyward has implemented a bit of a different development protocol for their team members, where tickets about accounts payable will go to someone who actually really knows the accounts payable module and has been certified through their credentialing process on it. So when you're putting in a ticket, even at a tier 1 level, you are actually getting someone who is familiar with the area you're asking about. And I think that's critical. Number 2, I normally pull the stats. Most of our tickets are answered within a few hours, if not within the same hour. Especially any mission critical things of that nature. So from that perspective, yes, support is improved. We now do have live chat functionality on the Qmlativ side. We didn't when we first started. That was one thing that we lost. But one of my favorite features with the Qmlativ team for support is we are a big fan of support accounts. And we're a big fan of, as we're doing a ticket, automatically creating that support account, being detailed in our ticket if we're writing it out, so that they literally go in, fix the problem, and let us know it's resolved. So all of those things combined has led to an elevated level of support. But I think it starts with their credentialing process and the skill process in order to even get a ticket in an area requires you to be knowledgeable.
And so when you go into the queue, like for when we do tickets for SMS, you have to like know tab, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like make sure you put them right. Like in the module and then do it in order to, and you have to say, okay, so right, or even when you're searching for the knowledge base, right?
Nicole is really excited here, so I'll let her
We have a
talk.
drop-down menu now. You literally select the module you're having a problem with, and you're good to go.
That
finding.
says present there, right? So, you know.
Yeah, that should be the selling point you need, so.
The capital letters and trying to figure out which one is different colors and stuff, that's gone.
And the knowledge base is the same, like, you know what I'm saying, like for the SMS knowledge base, you have to know, like you type in something, and then you have to know.
The Skydocs approach is gone. You can type in a word or a phrase, and it actually gives you results.
Okay.
With video embedded as opposed to just a PDF approach.
Perfect, thank you.
Yes?
I have a question about paperless. So I love that idea. How did you convince others in your district to embrace that? Because we have files and files. And again, I get it. There's, document management has to happen. But how did you convince not only your people who are tied to paper, but the people, I guess, across the district that feel lost without printing something?
So,
And the 30 years of files that you have in archive.
And how did you upload that?
Yeah.
are you going to give my trick?
Sure. Please start there.
First thing we did is we got rid of all the filing cabinets. So,
We've been trying to do that.
There was a step before that, but
well, okay, we got rid of all the filing cabinets. I have to be honest, our payroll team was a little bit hesitant. They still are a little bit hesitant. They do keep their paper for a little while, and then they wait to destroy it.
but they only have one drawer they can put it in, so
So they're moving forward, yeah.
And it's a matter of just really enforcing it and showing them the benefit of it down the road. Like when I get a question on a budget, like why is all this being charged to this particular salary account? I'll have to ask them to pull time sheets. Now, previously they're going through files and drawers to find them. Now they just have to go with Skyward and pull that attachment. It's easy peasy. So I'm sure he has more.
So, I'm going to give you a little secret. If you've ever had the joy of taking a good psychology class, you've learned of something called the Hawthorne experiment. Factory-based experiment, basically, you change the conditions, even if it's just light bulbs in a place, and you make that change and people feel rewarded, feel respected, feel being thought or on a higher pedestal. And then ultimately, as you make those changes and you do something else, even if you don't do anything, people think, oh my gosh, I'm being respected and rewarded again, and I'm going to continue to perform at a higher level.
So we bought them things.
So we bought them things. So this costs money. It's an investment, but just hear me out for a minute. I knew I wanted to be paperless 2 years before we went paperless. So I used that opportunity to do two things. One, my support staff members that were just in the clerical ranks, they only had a desktop computer, but it was time to replace their computers. And just for the record, the cost of a desktop compared to a laptop, not very different. So we gave them laptops. Number one. Number two, I was so sick of P cards. We're going to do a presentation on P cards. I was so sick of our office requiring you to place the receipt on a perfect 8.5 by 11, taped exactly fine, organized in a nice packet, and then sent over to the business office. And I didn't want to ever touch a receipt again, because some of these receipts physically are disgusting feeling. So, I also, by the way, had copiers that could scan. But a copier that can scan to an email is not as exciting as a small scanner that you place on their desk. Really nice scanner to be placed on your desk. So I place scanners on everyone's desk. And then I use the natural linchpin. People get frustrated when they don't have answers, such as when are we or when am I getting my check for my reimbursement? And we showed them that by doing this electronically, they can find the person that they need to yell at when they're not doing their part. So that worked out well. So I think I'm actually over 2 minutes.